Hello and welcome back to Assetto Corsa. Thank you very much for joining me in this video, and today we are going to be taking a look at a mod. We're back into the mods and we're looking at this Formula 1 car. This is the McLaren MP4-22 by the VRC Modding team. This is the 2007 Formula 1 Challenger for the McLaren team, and for those of you who maybe haven't been watching Formula 1 for over a decade, which makes me feel quite old because I've been watching Formula 1 for almost 2 decades now. Wow, that does make me feel really old. Anyway, this is the infamous year of the Spygate scandal, so I'll talk a little bit about that when we get to it. But first, let's talk about this mod. This is a 101 meg download, or thereabouts. It's about 100 megabytes download. You can get it off Race Department or directly from their site. I will link both in the description box below, so if you want to check those cars out, you can do so. This is, like I said, by the VRC Modding team, so they include people like Ferrari 64, Einstein, Mike, Mr. Beam, so on and so forth. So those people are there, all well known in the community as fantastic modders, and they have done a lot of research on this car and spent a lot of time on it. Now, when you unzip this file, or the 100 meg file, it comes up to about 580 meg or thereabouts. Don't worry about that. Or 500, is it 580 meg or is it 510 or 20 meg? Anyway, somewhere around the half a gigabyte. Now, don't worry, because the actual install for the car is not 500 megabytes. It's only a 271 megabyte install, and it comes with a 220 megabyte DDS file for the template. So that's why it's so big, and then it comes with some screenshots and it comes with a little readme, so don't worry, and some optional tire textures. So don't worry, it's not actually a huge install. It's only a 271 meg install, which I think is really good considering the quality of the car. With that being said, let's get on to, I think we'll talk about quickly what's available in game. So you've got the three liveries available. You've got Fernando, Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, who was in his first year of Formula 1 here. And you've got a completely blank livery. Then, like I said, you've also got the textures, the template that you can make your own liveries. But also on the car, and I think this is really nice. I've only seen this before on what car have I seen this before on? The Formula Renault 3.5, I think, did this. But you can change what the car looks like, and you may have seen at the start of the video that's what I was doing, so that's why I left the start in. I was getting rid of that weird front wing, which I really didn't like, so I got rid of that, and the little weird fins on the side around the engine casing. I got rid of that, and I changed the nose to a little bit more of a pointy nose, which technically I didn't want the pointy nose, but I couldn't really see it properly, so there we go. But you can change these on the fly, and I think that's really, really neat, so you can just drive it in whichever way you want, showing the progress of the car throughout the season, because obviously there were parts where it ran in such a fashion, or ran with that weird front wing, or without it, or with the little winglets, the winglets on the engine casing, without it, with the narrow nose, with the wider nose, so on and so forth. So I think that that's really, really well done, and that's something that definitely gives this an edge over other mods, other Formula 1 mods. I think this is quite special. Anyway, time to get on with the car. We'll talk a little bit about this car, and then we'll talk about the specs and what it's like in Assetto Corsa, nice and quickly. The car itself, like I said, was a 2007 car. It was also the first car that had the Vodafone branding on it. Before this, I think it was West, I think, if I remember correctly, but they had the black and greyish, or the black and silver cars. This is the first time they had the Vodafone sponsorship. This was also the first year for Fernando Alonso after leaving Renault. He went to McLaren, and also the first year, like I said, for Lewis Hamilton. So completely new driver lineup. The chief engineer on the car was Pat Fry, very well known in the community, and also this car was, like I said, involved in this whole Spygate scandal. So what happened is that apparently somebody in McLaren had acquired secrets. I believe it was from Ferrari, or someone at Ferrari had given the secrets to McLaren, who had then used it. So with them using it, that meant that basically this car was basically a cheat in many ways. I believe they were found guilty, and this car was showed to be a cheat, and therefore they were excluded from the World Drivers' Championship, something that they could have won. The World Constructors' Championship, something that they could have won. They were excluded because this was a very, very good car. Should I say second to Ferrari? I think personally this was maybe a little bit better than the Ferrari of that year, which of course is the one that won the Constructors' Championship and then the Drivers' Championship with Kimi Raikkonen. I'm going to spin out quite a few times, actually, and I'll explain a bit more about that in a bit. But there you go, so that's a little bit about this Spygate scandal. It was a really bad time in Formula 1. Politics played a huge part. It was money and scandals and just not very professional. I think it was just, I believe the right word would probably be corporate espionage, but it really wasn't nice. And yeah, there was a big mess, really big mess. But anyway, everyone came back the next year unscathed. Everyone got on with the job. Everything got better. People did continue their work, and McLaren did go on, of course, to win the following year with Lewis Hamilton claiming his first World Drivers' Championship. That also being said, Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton had a very bitter relationship, I would say, in 2007, and they won 4 races apiece, I believe. Fernando Alonso won the Malaysian Grand Prix, the Monaco Grand Prix, the European Grand Prix, which I think was in Valencia, which was, I think, the first year at Valencia potentially, and the Italian Grand Prix, whilst Lewis Hamilton won the Canadian Grand Prix, the USA Grand Prix at Indianapolis, the Hungarian Grand Prix, and the Japanese Grand Prix, which was at Suzuka. Was it at Suzuka that year? Because I remember one year there was at Fuji. Fuji Speedway. No, I think it was at Suzuka. But anyway, he won that Grand Prix as well. So you can see that they both won 4 Grand Prix apiece, and yeah, they were fighting quite a bit in the team, and that was causing a lot of friction. That rivalry was pretty insane. 2 drivers wanted to win the World Championship. Fernando Alonso, already a double World Champion. Lewis Hamilton wanting to prove that he is just as good in his initial season, in his rookie season as it were, to be just as good as everybody else. But you know, that's just how it went. Anyway, going on to the car. This car, the McLaren, has a Mercedes-Benz engine, as you would expect, a V8 engine, as you can hear, as I lose control once again of the car. Mid-engine longitudinally mounted, so it's behind the driver, aluminium alloy block and head, 2.4 litre, 4 valves per cylinder, dual overhead cam, naturally aspirated, no turbos and direct fuel injection, produced 765 brake horsepower in this configuration, with around 350-ish Newton meters of torque. 0 to 60, I suppose you could say, would be 2 seconds or so, but obviously different tracks means that you would have a different 0 to 60 as you adjust the gearing ratios on these cars. This isn't like current Formula 1 rules where the gearing ratios are, I think, only allowed to be changed once a season. So this is not like that. You could change them track to track, I believe, and that meant that the 0 to 60 would change, but around the 2 second mark, maybe 2.2 seconds, is what you had your 0 to 60. The chassis on this car was carbon and Kevlar composite monocoque, and the suspension was a double wishbone, push rods, steering was standard as everything else. The brakes were ventilated ceramic disc brakes all round. Gearbox was a 7-speed semi-automatic, and of course you are going to have a rear-wheel drive on this car, because all Formula 1 cars, I think barring one Formula 1 car wasn't bad, all Formula 1 cars have been rear-wheel drive. So yeah, pretty good car, very impressive. In fact, more than a pretty good car, it was very good. The electronics were all McLaren electronics, I believe. The tyres on these were the Bridgestone tyres. You'll probably see on the side. No, you can't really see it, but there were the Bridgestone Potenza tyres, Kenwood radios. The wheels themselves were Enkei. Is it Enkei or Enkei? I think it's Enkei. And I think that's pretty much all the information that's really needed. And of course their sponsorship, like I said, with Vodafone. They had other sponsorship, Mobil 1. I think Mobil 1 may still sponsor them with the fuel and oil and stuff like that. But there you go. So that is the specifications for this car. Very good car. Won 8 races. 8 races in the season. That's very good going for a car. It's just unfortunate that it was involved in that scandal. Not the car, but the people were involved in that scandal, Spygate, and of course the 2 drivers were at loggerheads with each other, and I believe Ron Dennis, then Fernando Alonso had a falling out with Ron Dennis, so on and so forth. It was a bit of a mess. It really was a bit of a mess. Anyway, for the last 5 minutes or so, let's talk about what this car's like in Assetto Corsa. Well, visually, graphics, textures, or modelling and texturing, absolutely fantastic, spot on all the way around, looks great. Even the fact that they've got it blinking with the white lights when it's in the pit lane, which you may have seen at the start of the video, I think that's absolutely fantastic. Everything looks bang on. The only thing I am going to say, there is one bug that I have found with this car. The level of detail model number 1, so the first one as it goes into the distance, seems to have some shading issues. You can pick up on shading issues on the side pods. That's the one bug I've found with this car in terms of the modelling. Apart from that, everything is bang on perfect on this car. Really, really well done. Fantastic job by the VRC modding team. But then again, what do you expect with such experienced modders? We've seen some of their cars that they have, and they've taken over from the Formula Corsa boys as well, so they update their cars, I believe, as on top of this, or at least one or two of their cars. Fantastic all the way around. Going on to the sounds, they've got the sounds from onboard cameras, from replays, all that kind of stuff, so they've done a lot of good work with the sounds. I think they're pretty good. I'll be honest, the interior sounds didn't wow me. They didn't wow me. The exterior definitely sound fantastic, but the interior, they didn't wow me. Just, I don't know. I think they just fell slightly short, ever so slightly short of wow. See, I'm just listening to it now and just trying to make a decision. But yeah, I think they've just fallen slightly short of the wow factor. But they are still very, very good. And the one thing that's very impressive is the traction control, which you would have heard in the earlier laps. I think I've already switched it off now, but you would have heard it in the earlier laps, and you can hear that when you put your foot down, you've got the traction control noise, and the traction control actually controlling the wheel slip and the spin on the wheels, and you can actually hear that system at work, which is very, very nicely done. Reminds me of the F2002 and the F2004 that also have this built in. Aside from that, yeah, it's just not right up there on the sounds, but it is still fantastic sounds. And last but not least, it is the physics. Now, the physics on this car, I'll be honest, this car has a lot of downforce. It has a lot of grunt. It's very powerful. It's very sticky. But for me personally, I didn't find this car as engaging to drive as the Ferrari, the 2006 Ferrari, which was the 248. The 248, I think it was the Ferrari 248. I did not find this as engaging as that Ferrari, the 2006 Ferrari, and this is obviously a year later. That Ferrari felt a lot more, I don't know, I just felt a lot more comfortable. Honestly, I felt more comfortable with those Ferraris of that era more than McLaren's. This McLaren feels like it's much more, it felt a bit understeery. Now, it is a very cold day, I'll give it that. It's only 7 degrees, and the track temperature I think was only 11 degrees or something. So it's a very cold day, very windy day. But this car did feel that it just didn't have the outright mechanical grip. I think it just didn't have the outright mechanical grip. Plenty of downforce on the car, that's for sure, more than the previous years. But outright mechanical grip, just lacking a little bit on that. I think some tuning of the car, obviously I was doing this in a stock setup, I think some tuning of the car would have been good, but it did take me a few laps to really get used to it. As you can see, I'm starting to get used to it now. It's just going into the corner, that initial turning just felt like it was leaning towards understeer when you were just turning it on partial throttle, and that was just something that I was having to be a little bit careful of. But obviously the weather is playing a factor in that, the tyres I'm using is also playing a factor in that, so I had to be a bit more careful on the brakes, so on and so forth. I think I could have got a much faster lap time had the weather been more decent, which obviously it wasn't. But with all that being said, whilst I'm on my fastest lap, what do I think of this car? All in all, it's a fantastic mod. The VRC modding team is brilliant. They really are very, very good at what they do. Very impressive, very, very impressive car. Even though it's got that level of detail model bug that I can see, I've still got to give this car a 10 out of 10. It's really fun to drive. Okay, it's not my cup of tea personally. I feel like for me it's just it's a little bit too understeery going into corners. That's just me, and obviously the weather does play a factor in that. I prefer the slightly older vehicles. It was this sort of era where the vehicles, they were good, the F1 cars were good, but they weren't brilliant. and then obviously 2014 everything went to pot. But it was sort of just before this era where I really liked the Formula 1 cars, and this is sort of the start of a bit of a downhill section for Formula 1, at least for me. But it's still a very good car, 10 out of 10, well worth a download. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, follow on Twitch, thumbs up, and do support me on Patreon, www.patreon.com/ecgadget. You'll find that in the description box below, as well as downloading this mod. I'll leave the link to that in the description box below as well. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.